Hello everybody, Jet here, and welcome to something a bit different. We're going to be going through the dev diary for Victoria Free today. This is something a bit different, so let me know what you think of the content and if this is something you'd like me to keep doing for dev diaries for various games I play or am planning on playing. So obviously it's Dev Diary 0, The Vision, where they're going to talk about their vision for the game Victoria Free. If you don't know what Victoria Free is, it's just been announced by Paradox Interactive at their ParadoxCon Remixed, and, well, I guess you'll find out what it is today. Obviously, it's a game set in the Victorian era. It's very much a grand strategy, but it's more a... Well, we'll go into it and it'll explain it. So, Dev Diary 0, The Vision. Hello, everyone. Yes, you're seeing this, right? No, this isn't a belated April Fool's joke. After all these years and all these memes, Victoria Free is really confirmed at last. I'm Martin Wiz Amwood, well, obviously I'm not, but that's who's writing this, the game director of Victoria Free, and it's my absolute pleasure to finally be able to reveal what I've been working on since 2018, around the time I stepped down as the game director of Stellaris, which was an amazing game. So if that's anything to go by, that's a very positive sign. So what then is Victoria Free? I can start by telling you it's most definitely a proper Victoria game, namely a game with a core focus on economy, politics and internal country management, with the iconic Victoria pop system not just included as a core mechanic, but made even deeper than in either of its predecessors. Okay, so this is where I'm a bit off here, because I've never played one of the Vicky games. I'm considering giving 2 a go, so let me know down in the comments if you want to see me bashing my head against a wall with an early Paradox game. But I've always heard it's very in-depth in the way it works, so this is a good, interesting thing, so long as it's done well. Because my only ever worry when developers say stuff like this is having a good in-depth system is all good so long as the UI and the interactions and the UX, so basically the user experience to use that, is done well. Now Paradox can do this well most of the time. So long as you've got all of the ability to manage it and understand it at a glance without having to dive through menu after menu after menu, that's all well and good. So but that is also a very hard thing to do and do well. But I think Paradox have the ability to do it well. And they are one of the few companies which have the ability to do it well because they've got lots of experience in that. So we'll wait until we see more on that. But I'm excited to see how it develops, especially as somebody who's been I've been QA UI specialist, so we'll see, because I could have opinions. Me? Opinions? Never. Anyway, next bit. Though Victoria Free is its own game and not an iteration on Victoria 2, our ambition is to create a worthy successor that stays true to the core values of the Victoria series, while using what we have learned over the last decade in terms of making games more accessible. So that goes back to what I was just talking about, that access and ability to use things, so that we can use accessibility to build an even deeper game for old and new players alike. And that's what I talked about, their UI and how accessibility is basically how easy the game is to play, the quality of life while playing said game. Now, some of the older players do get a little angsty about it because they think it makes it less hardcore, but personally, no. If a game is easy to play, you can have the depth. Crusader Kings 2 Free is the perfect example of this. It's got all the depth if you really want to drill down into it, but it's a very playable game and the UI shows you what you need to know to be able to play it. But if you want to dive down, you've got that depth as well in there, and it's accessible to most people. As you play it more, you'll get more and more of that depth. I can't play Crusader Kings 2. Crusader Kings 3 is a breeze. And my 13-year-old can play Crusader Kings 3. So, a 14-year-old even, she'll tell me off for calling her 13. Probably down in the comments. Our Victoria Our vision for Victoria 3 is to create what we call a society sim. A game that is first and foremost about the internal workings of a 19th century country that you are playing and how its society is shaped over the course of the game. Politics, economy, and diplomacy are three of the most important parts of the game. Wars are of course part of the game, just as they were part of the Victorian age, but Victoria is not a war game about map painting. This is where I think I will love Victoria 3, and I think a lot of people will. But I think a lot of the newer Paradox fans, I'm not being rude to you guys if you are newer fans, I think there's a lot of map painters who have certainly more recently joined the Paradox community as they've got bigger. So I think there will be a little bit of a backlash there. And here's a loading screen, the Victoria Palace loading screen, which looks absolutely lovely. I love the art they used for these things. That is a gorgeous bit of art. And is that... Oh, it's Victoria Palace, but it doesn't look like Victoria Palace. But yeah, it's the Crystal Palace, sorry. And it looks like Kew Gardens. Or somewhere like that. But it looks gorgeous. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, and before you start speculating, like, crazily about what is and is not in the game, no, there is no mana. Now, there was a whole thing about Imperator Rome, because it had systems which were known as mana in it, which they removed stealthily. Personally, I have no problem with mana in games. It's a way of representing political power or influence or whatever. So long as it's acquired in a sensible way and used in a sensible way, I have no problems with it. In Imperator, it became a sticking point for some people. I suspect what you will find is there will be some... Every game like this has mana, even if they say it's not there. There will be something in the background which does the same job as it, so you can't just do everything at once. Some resource which ticks up, be it political influence, war score, this, that, the other. You know, not war score, but, you know, political influence, scientific research, this, that, the other, in the background, which will do the same job as it. They'll just cover it up so that people don't complain again, which I don't blame them for, because there was a bit of a backlash against it, rightly or wrongly. I'm not going to get into the whole argument any more than I have in the past, but so long as they do it well, again, it's so long as it's implemented well and in a way, because no mana, if there's literally no mana, it makes dealing things a bit more trickier. I suspect it will be just built into mechanics in the background to stop you doing things instantly or too quickly, so you've got to build up resources before you can do things. Now, there's going to be a lot of dev diaries going forward to dig into the mechanics of the game, but to wrap up this dev diary, I want to briefly touch on the 4 game design pillars that we have been following when designing and building Victoria 3. So for those non-experts, the pillars are, I mean, it's what it sounds like. They're the bits and pieces you are designing your game around. So they're your most important concepts which the game is being designed around. And these are national gardening, building, shaping and tweaking and evolving your nation is the first and foremost focus of the game. Events outside your country's borders can naturally affect your country in significant ways, but the game should never rely on war to provide a main source of enjoyment. So wars are there, but it's not the main focus of the game. Now, we'll talk about this a bit more, because I think some of the others are going to cover it a bit more. Diplomatic eminence. War is a continuation of diplomacy, and everything is achievable by war should also be achievable through diplomacy, even if that diplomacy sometimes comes at the point of a gun, which is why I was saying we'd wait. So you should be able to force things if you're powerful enough, or if you're smaller, you might have big nations forcing things to you and being forced to make difficult decisions, i.e. if you're somewhere in the Balkans, you might have to pick a side between the Ottomans, the Austrians, the Austro-Hungarians, or Russia for who to side with, who to hitch your wagon to stay relevant to not get squashed by the others while trying to maintain your relevance and things like that, which really sounds like small countries could be really interesting doing it. The thing I want to see is I'd like to see, I've discussed it a bit with my community, like the idea of trying to forge other great powers in places like Argentina was considered a great power at this point in time, but obviously declined. So see if you can reverse that, or see if you can go into the Middle East and form a proper Arab League of Nations, a united Arabia, which was something which was definitely thought about by Arabia for a lot of time. And this is probably the period you'd be able to do it. But I could be going far too far about what I'm thinking of this. But yeah, they are awesome things, the idea to be able to do stuff like that, nations which were thought about but never actually came into being as well could be interesting. And these little nations in the political difficult things. Anyway, let's get back onto the other things. Because obviously they'll cover this more. Everything is political. Politics is at the heart of Victoria 3. And all major features should in some way tie back into the pops and interest groups from the core of the game's mechanics. So obviously your politics things are going to have to deal with your pops and everything, and your interest groups, which will push your nation in certain ways, and you're going to have to manage them to try and push the nation in the way you want. And an era of change. The Victorian era was a time of immense change politically, technologically, culturally, militarily, and societally. And these changes should be reflected in the experience of playing a campaign in Victoria 3. That's all for this week, but we'll see you next week when we'll be talking about the return of the Victoria pop system and the introduction of dependence. Interesting. We'll also have more exciting news to share as we go. So make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, the Paradox forums, and the official Victoria 3 website. So yeah, go join all of those. Obviously join my Discord as well, link down below. But yeah, so that all sounds really interesting. Obviously it's just a very minor overview at the moment. It sounds like a really interesting game and a concept. It's not going to be for everybody. Don't get me wrong, if you like painting maps, it's probably not for you. But I think it's going to give some really interesting, difficult situations. So obviously playing a big country is going to be fun because you're going to be going, I'm the British Empire. I'm going to cover the world. I needed to get my naval hat then, didn't I? But it's inside. I'm going to make the world, not cover the world, but make the world my diplomatic theory and bring everybody into my sphere of influence. Or France, or Russia, or even America. Any of these big powers, it's going to be about just extending your diplomatic influence as far as possible. Whereas if you're playing as little countries, smaller countries, it's going to be much more about doing the best you can for yourself, surviving the turbulent times and changes, surviving the machinations of the large nations around you, So, pushing to, choosing who to hitch your wagon to make yourself more powerful, more relevant in the world, so that you don't get just taken away and effectively managed by somebody else. But we'll see how all this comes. I'm really looking forward to doing it. Let me know down in the comments, guys, if you'd like me to do more of these dev diaries. I know there's a lot of people do them, but I thought I'd give it a go because, well, not all of my community are Paradox people, so it could be interesting for you to see these. And it gives my point of view is very different from some of the others. While I really like a lot of the other content creators, Lambert does these as well. So if you want to see a different point of view, Lambert is a good one because he definitely has different points of view of me on certain things. But he's very good at what he does. And check out other dev diaries as well to see other people's opinions and things. Lambert also has a lot of connections within Paradox, so potentially has a lot more information than I do, and knows the games in far more depth than I do. I'm more of a casual player to his hardcore play. So yeah, but other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you have enjoyed this. Give us a shout out down in the comments and like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, guys.